All right, now we're down to the home stretch here. I've got the renders out and I brought them into Nuke, and I'm just gonna show you guys just what's going on and all this mess I have here just to rebuild our render. We'll go one by one so I can show you guys what's happening, what kind of things I ran into, and things I did to resolve them, and issues I found along the way that might have to readdress and go back into lighting. But I'm glad we're here because now we can assess everything we did, bring it all together, and see what areas we can go back and tweak, or what can we do in Nuke and just kind of stay in this environment. So for instance, let's start with our mats. So when I usually start bringing in mats, we're using our CryptoMat node, which again, if you go online and download it, and then install it on your machine. This has been a very powerful tool just to quickly get some mats out based on the geometry. So this is the my render here. Now it's black. It's got some kind of luminescence in here from the shader. But the important part here is that I didn't really need any lighting because this is purely for mats. And what I needed in here was the CryptoMat node that we were rendering from V-Ray. So again, if I go back into V-Ray, it is under here, CryptoMat. All I had to do was just enable it, and then that's it. So now what that does is, if we were to make a new CryptoMat here, just connect it. Let's take a look. This is how it comes out. So it splits every piece of geo into its own color, and then we're able to select and isolate and make a mat out of it. So if I go to pick or add, and in my keyboard here, if I hit Control, click, I'm able to select that piece of geo, and I just switch to mat only. Now we have a mat, and we can always add more. So if I go back and just keep that picker add on and say I want to include this and this, and now we go switch mat. So now we have a new mat based on our geo. Now, before I sent stuff out for the CryptoMat, I also mentioned that I was going to run a test on our render settings because it is very important to have very clean renders to create these CryptoMats. Now, I'm going to turn this off real quick and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to switch. No, I'm not. So I have this low settings one. So I'm going to switch over here. Right. So I want you to take a look at this min sub. So the low settings, we just had this set to 1. And when I switch over to our top mats here, I switched this min sub div to 6. Now the reason I did that, and that's really because of experience, if I come over here and I shuffle out using our shuffle node, which is what, if you are unaware, shuffle just grabs a channel that's inside of this EXR and pushes it out so we can view it. Without having to go through this drop down menu, it just pushes that channel into another channel. For instance, here we're pushing the CryptoMat into our RGBA. So obviously if we view here, we're viewing RGBA. It's set, you can't see anything, and if we switch out, this is the CryptoMat, how it looks. So I just shuffled out the CryptoMat from both these beauties, the low setting and our default top mats. So I want you to zoom in and take a look at those edges. So that is with min sub div set to 1, and this is with 6. So, you know, we could always go even higher to sort of kind of get these a lot smoother, but I want you guys to see what the difference of that makes. So I just kept it at 6 for now, and obviously if I want, I can just go even crazier to sort of fix some of these uneven pixels here. But just so you guys can see what's happening. So I wanted to make sure I show you guys that. Okay, cool. So now what I do is I split all the sections I need. So for instance, I have buttons here. I have button rings, the upper body, center ring, light glass, which are these little streams here. We have the wand, outer piece, just this section, which was kind of a nightmare, and you'll see in a second. We have these dials that we have on the corner here. We have a little piece of glass, and then this other gear on the side. So now we're able to isolate these areas and adjust them here in Nuke without having to do anything crazy and going back into lighting. We can do quick grades and just work on things on these specific areas. Now, when I bring this back into this stream here, what I do is I grab the A into B and throw it into a copy node. So in the copy node, what I'm saying is I want you to grab this which right now what it does, the cryptomat also pushes this into the alpha. So this is RGB, and let me just switch it so you can see it. So I want to view this. If I go into the alpha, it throws it into the alpha as well. So I'm just go back to RGBA. So what I'm doing is I want to grab that alpha and push it into a brand new channel that we're going to make. For instance, here I want it to just be consistent. So let's actually do one here on the side so you can see how I'm building it. So what I'm saying is I grabbed that cryptomat and I'm gonna K as a shortcut to create a copy node, and I'm gonna say A to B. And now what I'm saying is A, which is here, the first one, I want to grab that alpha, which is fine, and we're going to push this into this stream, but we're going to make a new channel. So what I'm going to go is do this drop down menu, create new, and just to be consistent, I'm going to just say mat, the name of the asset, underscore, and I'm just going to name buttons. I'm just going to put buttons 2 so it doesn't conflict with other mats that I have in here. Buttons 2 dot red. Now the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm pushing this channel alpha, which is just one was, you know, because RGB is 3, so we just need 1, which is alpha, which is just one color here, and we're just going to put it into the red channel. So if I hit OK, this is going to say create new layer. Yes. Cool. So now it's been pushed into this B stream. So if I go here into this first one, you can see the drop down. We only have these cryptomats. Now if you go down here, now we have this mat Breville underscore buttons 02. Now where's the red? There it is, because it's based off one channel. So if we go to red, which is R, it shows here. Green obviously is empty, and blue is empty because these channels don't have any information. And all we need is 1 because these are just going to be mats. So I just did that over and over. Like I create a new one and then I push it in, new one and push it in. So by the time I get down here, if I do a drop down, now I have all my mats here. I have the glass front, I have the light glass, and now I'm able to call on these mats when I need them. But we're not done yet. I also, as I was going through and rebuilding, there were some custom mats I needed because the cryptomat was not giving me the ones I needed. For instance, I needed a way to isolate this whole top section. Now I could have just gone add, but the problem is around here, this geo continues. As you guys remember, this is just one big piece of geo. So if we actually see that piece, which is probably this one here, that geo continues. But what I needed was a way to just isolate these top areas. Now I could have just done a roto in Nuke and just manually cut it, but you know, I want to see how much I can get out of Maya just by selecting the faces. So I created a custom mat, and by doing what I did was I just added a black surface shader to everything and then red on the areas I needed and just rendered it out. And that's how this looks right over here. If I were to jump in this upper area, this is all I did. We just added a red surface shader on everything, and I just kind of based it on the camera, and I just selected the faces I needed, and that was my own custom little mat I did. So that's this guy. So what I did was the same thing as I treated it with the crypto mats, is I just pushed it into the stream. So if I go down here, now I can see my upper area. Boom. Cool. So now we got this stream of mats going, and I want to kind of keep it separate from my actual stream. This is my mats backdrop, and this is where I'm just building all these mats and just pushing them in, and now I'm going to push this whole thing into this main stream. And by doing that, all we do is use another copy node. Now I'm not copying alphas. I'm not copying the alpha of this stream. What I'm copying is all those layers. So I'm not going to use any of these. So I just kind of leave these all off, and I just make sure I layer copy all, because I'm just going to make a quick dot. So you can see here, this is the beauty that we got coming out for the top. If I do this little drop down, you see we have our light selects, we have our default, diffuse, normals, reflect. Now if I view this area, now we have all our mats available. So if I go and click side dial, you see Switch back to RGBA. Now we're able to call on that matte when we need it down the stream. So that's cool. So now we got that going in there. So now that we finished this matte section, let's move on to what we got going on our beauty render. So I want to show another trick that I've kind of gone through with experience. So if I look at this previous render I have, I mean, first of all, it was not coming out the way I needed. Something was going on, but it's a good thing I did this test first, because what I realized is apart from some lights were just acting really weird and I wasn't sure why, I looked at this and I was getting an actual wireframe inside of the geo. Now, this has happened to me at work, so I know how to solve this. What I usually do is this has something to do with this setting. If I jump back into Maya, if I go under overrides, under rendering, our secondary ray bias is by default set to 0. So when that ever happens, I go in there and I just switch this to 0.01. Now, this is just a secondary ray. It's probably calculating for the geo or something. You know, I'm not 100% like technical on that end to explain, but I do this, and this kind of solves that whole issue. It just removes that wireframe that's being rendered. Just a quick trick that I figured out. So when I go here and I go here, so I fixed that weird lighting issue, and I also got rid of the wireframe that was appearing. So that was one issue I ran into in my renders, and I kind of was like, okay, well, now I got this. I also ran into little things. So, you know, I'm getting some subdivision issues here, so I might want to up the subdivisions on this geo to make sure it's nice and smooth. Whatever, that's an easy fix. We can go back and just make sure it's higher. Okay, so this is our top beauty. I make sure I name it top because this is also the top camera. So this is our beauty, and this will be our work area, so I can do things if I need to, but I probably would work on it underneath this, because here when we get to this stream, we have our mats and we're able to access them. Okay, so now as I go down, I know we're also rendering our decal separate. So if I view this beauty again, I'm sure it was either in here. Yes, the barista decals extra text we set up. So if we view this, you can see this is where our decals live. And we said we're going to work on these separate. So I just kind of used a constant, like just a white constant, and we're just merging this constant over, but making sure our matte is our decal. That way now we have our decal set in, and we can always adjust this color however we want. There might be, I might want to just maybe select areas. Maybe I want this to be a little darker than here, but now we have a separate section to work on. This will be our decals. Moving on, I want to make sure we replace this correctly. So this is the main window renders we had set up. This was actually very easy because this by default came in with the alpha. So I was just basically a simple over, and that just replaces it. I'll just do a quick before, after, and that just kind of drops it over. Let's move down here. So this area became a little bit of a nightmare, but I'm gonna run you through it. So this is the problem when we start messing with different cameras and just merging things together. There's going to be a lot of things you're going to have to push and pull and see what's the best way to get it aligned and working. These are our Chrome renders. So remember, we rendered this out with a orthographic camera, which obviously changes the shape of this rim over here, and obviously these pieces of chrome and this whole area down here. So obviously I needed mattes coming out of the ortho camera as well. So now here I was intending to do the same thing I did up there, but you know, I didn't really need more than just one, which was just I needed these separate. So I just did a cryptomat again and I selected these areas. Now the problem next that I ran into is that whole rim that connects into the upper body. This area, I couldn't get it to really align to the other cameras, so I said I'm gonna use this one instead and just merge that with the top. Now let me just show you how the cryptomat looks for this guy. So the issue here was that this bottom piece here is actually connected with this whole bottom area. What I mean by that is this piece is actually part of this piece. So I couldn't select it with a Cryptomac because it was just going to grab the whole thing. So again, the same method with the other one. I made a custom one using surface shaders, and again just selecting faces, and just selected the areas I wanted and just created this matte. And what I do is a lot is, instead of having all these like shuffle out red, shuffle out green, and then merge here and then add here, it just starts creating a mess. I tend to just use expressions for simple things like this. The expression node is great. So if I just kind of open this up, what I'm just saying is, and this was actually pretty good because I actually needed all three of these channels. So what I did was I wanted to replace the alpha channel with red plus green plus red plus blue plus green, and just a simple R plus B plus G is adding all of those up. So if I view this in the alpha, now we have them all together. This kind of beats the whole like shuffling out red and adding, and just becomes like a mess. So what I did was, now I merged those two together using a plus, and now we have this. So now we were able to isolate this whole area, and this will become our new alpha for this render. So if I go here, our alpha, it looks like this because obviously it's rendering all this other parts as well. What I'm doing is I'm replacing that alpha. So by doing this and then copying over like this, so now here, because it's in the red, I just kind of pushed the red into the alpha. All I did was just go RGBA red into the RGB alpha. So if I go 1, 2, you shouldn't see anything in the RGB. What you should see obviously is in the alpha. So now we replace that, and now we're able to just kind of grab this render and just dump it on top of the other stuff. So I'm going to make a quick dot here. So before, and then we're just merging it over after. So this obviously is causing more issues. So I did this, and obviously we still have that render from the other camera behind it. But what I wanted to look at was this, we're replacing this rim, because this one had a lot of perspective on it, and this thing just looked weird floating and connecting into this. So this looked a little bit much better, but now we run into a whole bunch of other issues. Things are not aligning. We might, this should be curving onto here. Also, the scale looks a little bit odd. It's a little bit bigger. Obviously here too. Now there are a few ways to tackle this. We can actually just be in Nuke here and just do a transform and scale it in and push it in and whatever. But once I ran into this, I started realizing, well, if we compare our beauty top to our reference, we got quite a lot of perspective on ours. We're seeing a lot underneath here as opposed to here. We're not. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening, and again, I was not sure how this was built. We're not too far off because we're also getting perspective here, but not so much underneath here. So now there's a lot of things, a lot of questions like, was this adjusted in post? Was it cut off? Was it a different camera altogether? Do we need to go back and realign this top render? Which is, I'm considering it. See if I could remove most of this perspective to get this to kind of sink in a little better. But this is why I wanted to show this whole progress I'm going through, so you guys can see, there are the importance of making sure your cameras are set clean all the way from the get-go, because you get up to this level and now we're like, whoa, look at all this. Also, I'm seeing things like this. Ours is a little bit slanted too much, and we're not seeing this little hill up here that gives it a nice interesting shape. So it's good to kind of take the time with the camera and make sure you're aligning everything. But we'll make do. I didn't do any real comp work really yet. We could go in and just start transforming and rotoing and getting things a little bit better aligned here in Nuke. But, you know, I might go back and just see if I can tweak the camera a little bit better. All right, so that's cool. So down here, I wanted to show that whole expressions thing, because now what I needed was I needed a mask or an alpha or matte, whatever you want to call it, of this top area, including these chrome sections separate, so I can just plop this entire image onto the bottom render. This is how the bottom render looks. Now again, because this geo is one big piece, it rendered all together. But what I'm interested here is just obviously this whole bottom area and this straight edge going straight onto that behind that upper section. So that was kind of my way to kind of get around it. Was all I need is a way to isolate this whole top area, so I can just plop it over this guy. That brought in another challenge. Like, okay, now I need a new matte. Thankfully here, if I go into here, what I wanted to do was we did this render. Remember we did earlier this matte. Now I want to merge this matte with our chrome guy. I want to mix these two together. But first here, I wanted to also make sure I bring the wand with me. So here is the upper area shuffle. I also have our wand matte. So again, I didn't want to go in and just start adding plus shuffling stuff out, because here I will have to go here, and now I need to make a merge, and now I got to bring it over. Now we got all this stuff here. So I'm just going to delete that. And all I did was in the expression was I make sure I grab the name Matt _ Breville steam wand .red plus Matt Breville upper area .red. And so I just added those two mats together, and now we have these two guys in one. Now and then I just grabbed the alpha from up here, which is this bottom section, and I just added those two together. So now we have that whole area isolated. This is another interesting issue we're gonna have to solve. So now if I go here, switch back to RGB, and I go blop, nothing should happen, because what I'm doing, like I said, is I'm replacing the alpha with this guy. Boom, boom. And now what I'm going to do is a pre-mult, which with that is going to multiply the RGB with the alpha. So anything that's 0 is just going to get removed. Again, let's take a look at the alpha. There's nothing here, so we're just going to do, just going to multiply it by 0 and just remove it. So now we have this guy isolated, and we're just going to plop it over. Boom, this guy. Let's take a look at that again. I also have a rotor here. Now I'm going to remove it. So because that's what I was talking about earlier. Now we have this geo sort of floating back here. So, you know, a little bit of a cheat. Just kind of removed it so we can have this render kind of sneaking behind this top render. And there we go. Now we've built up to here so far. Obviously we have the grinder, which is floating here. And like I said, I didn't really care about this whole bottom area because this is actually going to go behind. So if I go here and I just go plop, you can't even see how it connects, and it doesn't look too bad. And then obviously we just need to make sure we merge it over a constant white, and here we are. So this is our render rebuilt, and now we're able to adjust what we need. We have all our sections separated out. So if we want to work on, you know, for instance, we did talk about this main window. We wanted to remove these reflections. So if I go into our main window section, let me just do a quick save. If I go in here, now if I just go through what channels we've got our reflection, which is this guy, and we have our refract. So what we could do is maybe let's take a look at what happens if we do a grade on our reflection and just kill it. So if I go 1, 2, oh, that did not like that. So maybe we'll have to split this out and then bring it back in. Let's see. Okay, so we're pushing our reflection into our GBA. So I go here and I go here. Here's our reflection. Let's see what happens if we do this. It's kind of a big workaround. Kill it, and then we replace it. We're gonna grab into our reflection. All right, well, it looks like we might have to rebuild this beauty real quick. Thankfully, I have over here it already shuffled out. So this is the main window beauty, and I split out the diffuse, reflection, refraction, and specular. Again, using our shuffle nodes, just pushing the diffuse into our GBA, reflect into our GBA, and then rebuild them using plus, just kind of going A, B, A, B, A, B. Now, in rebuilding it looks like I might have missed one more pass because it looks like we're missing maybe GI to completely rebuild this one-to-one. But for now, what I'm going to do is just kind of grab this and just hit a copy, just jump over back to our main comp. I could delete all this, and I'm just going to hit paste. Might have to expand this a little bit. This is the beauty about having all these separate. I can just kind of work on this on its own. Okay, just get a little bit organized and make sure we're all grabbing from this. This is getting a little bit wacky, so I'm just going to disconnect all this guy. This is going to be our merge. All right, so what I'm doing here again is go here, splitting out all these passes, and now I'm able to work on these separately, plus them back on to rebuild the beauty, and then use that as our over. Okay, so like I said, we were going to adjust the reflection because that's this guy, and we said we didn't want it. Just drop this down a little bit, and then here I can just throw in a grade, and I usually try to stick to gain a lot because we're able to bring this information back into V-Ray. Right now it's set to 1, so what I'm going to do is here and then just maybe drop this down to maybe 0. So you can see here nothing's happening, and there it's rebuilt, and now we were able to remove. What's happening is because we're plussing here, these guys don't actually have, so we're pushing this into the alpha, so that's why it's not doing an over correctly. I like the alpha that's coming from the beauty, so what I could do is again using K to copy our alpha from up here and then just plunge it in at the end. Let's get a little bit better organized here so you can visually see what's happening, and just scooch this back. Whoa. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm grabbing that alpha from the main beauty and just kind of replacing it, because here we're just kind of messing with the alpha and we don't need these alphas. So I'm gonna go here. So if we go alpha, there we go. Just drop a quick. Now to get these, I'm just holding control, and that kind of gives us this, and you just click on it and it creates a little dot. So I'm gonna go before, after. Oh. So now we're just replacing it over. Interesting. I think I know what's happening. Yep. So I had this alpha disabled before because what I didn't want the this alpha to influence. This was another thing I kind of usually do to try to protect the alpha if we're doing these merges and pluses. But in this instance, we need this. We needed to look into this alpha to do a merge. So now if we go before, after, there you go. Now interesting, we're seeing some interesting issues here. Now this alpha is now not correct because we don't have nothing blocking. This is interesting that we ran into, because now I actually don't even think I need this alpha anymore. What I'm going to use is I'm going to mask it using our mat that we made earlier. So if I go in here, I think we already have a mat for this. We do have a center ring, and we do have a glass front. There we go. So now we have another interesting issue, is that we have these crypto mats separated, but we actually need these two in one. So I could do two things: either make an expression or make a new mat and just plug it into the stream, and then we can access it later on to just kind of keep things clean. Yeah, let's do that. That's really quick, and you guys were able to see how that works. So I'm just going to do a quick crypto mat. And I'm going to make a new custom one using this guy and this guy. Turn mat only. And again, just to be consistent in naming, I'm just going to write mat fill. I'll just call this main window dot underscore crypto. Okay, and this has nothing to do with the name. This is just mainly for organization purposes, just so I know what's happening in this crypto mat. And I'm going to do the copy. So K to copy A into B. Let's sneak this guy in here. And what I'm doing again is grabbing this alpha and pushing it into a new channel. I'm going to go here and hit new. I'm going to say mat underscore Breville main window dot red. Create a new layer called mat underscore Breville underscore main window. Hit yes. And now this new mat is inside this stream, and I'm going to go all the way down here to main window, and under my over I'm going to say I want this to be merged over. I want this image to be brought onto this stream using our mask. Main window. And now that removes. I'm going to do a quick undo so you guys can see. So now we're going to be able to bring that over. Boom. There you go. And now that looks a little bit cleaner. We're not pushing stuff out and then rebuilding. It's all happening up here, and then it's just getting pushed into our stream. Perfect. Now again, we removed that reflection, but you know we're getting these issues now. We're not getting that lighting we want, so I can go back and just kind of go in and fix this, because I don't think this is actually how I thought it was going to come out. I'm having issues sending it to the farm, and it's not coming out the same way as I had it locally. So I might have to rerun this locally and just make sure we get this lighting that we had before. But for now, I just want to keep going. Right, so now we have everything merged. We ran into issues, like I said. We have this guy that we could, you know, I kind of liked how it's coming out, because this is actually coming out of the orthographic camera, and I think, not the orthographic, the perspective camera, and if we were to re-render this with the ortho, it might not have enough shape. So there's, you know, we could do two things here. If you don't want to go back and figure out how to remerge this, we can just kind of go in and isolate this whole little guy and just kind of scale it and put it in here. But I think before we even do that, we might have to figure out issues between this connection. I think our scale is completely off on this render here. So sometimes what I like to do is kind of do my adjustments in Nuke, like value wise, and maybe just a little bit here in scale, just to sort of see what I need to do back in Maya to refine this render. So for instance here, I'm just going to go 0.8. Obviously it's way too much. I'm just kind of just trying to see what's happening. You know, it's not behaving, because I'm sure there's a lot of masking issues that are happening as I'm doing this. You know, but this is something now that I can see that I'm like, all right, well, the cameras are obviously way too way too big. Like we're too zoomed in too much. I might have to rescale this guy down, which is fine. I can go in there. For instance, this guy looks a little bit too dark. I can always go in and work on this top section here. Maybe do a grade. And what is the name of this? I think it was called wheel gear. So I can go in a grade and just mask it using our matte wheel gear and just kind of push it up a little bit. It's always good to view it under your final kind of background so we can sort of assess the brightness a little better. You know, and I'd rather do these crazy adjustments in value like this, like blowing out in Nuke, because we'll still have information if we ever needed to dial back. If I were to just render this like this, we might not have enough information to push and pull. Even though we are rendering at 32-bit, which we have our range. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I think this has to do with all these merges that I'm doing, that I'm affecting the alpha. So one way we can kind of take a look is if we go here and we just kind of scroll through, see where it could be happening. That looks like something's happening with this. Something's happening here. This is interesting. So there, you know, you can see there's a lot of edge issues that we're having here that we might have to diagnose. I think this just has to do with all these merges I'm doing. It's not really happening on the bottom. All right. Well, I have to take a look at that. This has to do with these mats that I'm doing. Another thing I just noticed is we are going to have to take a look at this reflection, because if we look at our reference, jump back and forth, it's not as strong, and also the it's actually quite, ours is quite up here, like almost in the middle. Also noticing this these values here are very, if I just hit W, so we can sort of, oh, resolutions are different. Maybe I can just reformat this. There you go. Just so we can do a quick swipe. A lot of things to fix, but not bad for just kind of winging it. We're in the ballpark, and again, now we have all this, there are values. Now we can kind of match them a little closer here, and I would rather do this in comp because it's much easier to view. Yeah, we're just gonna have to be able to mask all of these sections out and do a adjustment. I might have to do a custom matte because, like you said, this guy is coming out of a different camera. Or what we could do is just go and just do a hue correct. And what I'm going to do is I'm just do overall, just because I want to see what kind of so if you hold control down and click, you're able to sort of see where in this hue correct, like where are you in terms of where in the space and the information of the whole image. So you can see I can kind of drop the red a bit, or if you want, you can also saturation here. Maybe it's the luminance is too much. And then now we can just kind of refine it and keep going. And then now we just need masks to kind of isolate these areas. But we have all those masks and we can kind of just merge. And also if we make a mask for this top area, if we were to just be doing it maybe around here. Oh, and just saying I want this to be masked by the upper body. So it shouldn't be affecting anything else but this guy. Then what we could do is actually make a, if I do, I think it's Alt K, that makes a clone. I think you can also just go edit clone, Alt K. So that again, we do one and affects the other one, and then here we can kind of connect this to the bottom renders, bottom section here. Problem with this is that it's going to be looking for this upper body red, and that is going to cause an issue because that mask map isn't in this stream, it's going down here. So you know, we might have to do like you find out your adjustments and you copy and then paste it onto here into this bottom render. So this guy gets affected as well. So yeah, that's how we rebuilt this this render back, and now we can assess the areas we need to adjust, either re-render, obviously color correct, things that are not working. You know, these areas down here, for instance, we're gonna have to treat this reflection like we were trying to treat this guy. Is we're gonna have to split this reflection out from the bottom section, and good thing we have it all separate, so I can just kind of scooch this away and make more room. Oh. And we might have to shuffle all our stuff out, like shuffle out the diffuse, the reflection, you know, which we have diffuse, reflection, refract. We're gonna have to split all of that up, which I think we have. I have a script I found. I found this script online, just to shuffle everything out. I'm gonna just go right click here, and I'm just gonna pull up my under Windows our script editor, and I'm just gonna paste the script. What that does is it's gonna push out all the channels into a shuffle. I'm just gonna pull these away because it's gonna make a mess. And I'm gonna hit run. So you see, it just pulls out all those channels in here. Let me get rid of this guy and just take a look. It's gonna push all of these into their own shuffle. So we have all these light selects. Again, these are all just the lights that we are making up this image, all into their own. And the big one here really is these areas. This is the more light selects. This is the reflection. So this is the pass we're gonna have to edit. You know, maybe we'll do a roto and just kind of do something like this. You know, kind of well, this is kind of affecting the alpha. We can always tell it, no, we want to affect the RGBA. And maybe we'll just change the color of the roto to be dark. And we do things like this. It's like, oh, maybe I want just like a soft reflection. Just sort of like have it die out as it gets to the top. You know, and then we can also do a grade. Maybe it's too strong, maybe drop it overall. And then, you know, like how we did before, we rebuilt all this with the other passes, the diffuse, the GI, which I think we might need to re-render the GI again. If I go here and I just hit this to plus, so now we're rebuilding. This is the diffuse. We have the reflection. We need to bring in which I think this is empty. Yeah, we have the specular, so we'll just kind of merge that. And it's very easy to start, making a mess as you're trying to figure out the best way to go about this. Let's go plus. We go 1, 2. And if we can always compare it to our main beauty, which is all the way down here, I think we're missing some subsurface might be in here, which, as you see, we do not have in our channels here. So that would be a re-render. Make sure we have subsurface turned on as one of the passes here, which I thought I had, but looks like we're not. And the GI we're missing. Yeah, well, lesson learned. We need all that to rebuild this to match to our beauty 101. This method might not be correct. I think I'm merging this one incorrect. The reflection should not be here. Anyways, so that's what we're talking about. So this is sort of, we'll split it up into its own render elements and just rebuild them and then adjust the areas we need. Yeah, so this is sort of just a quick, just show you where I'm at, all the troubles I ran into, things I need to readdress, but this is nothing out of the ordinary. This happens and we need to address them in order to get the nice final beauty render going. But in any case, I'll work on it and I'll show you guys what solutions I find. But I wanted to make sure you guys understood just sort of how to rebuild this using simple shuffles and merging on alphas and then figuring out areas that we can just kind of fix in Nuke. Things that we're gonna have to go back into Maya to fix. This reflection, I'll figure it out. We'll just kind of re-render to make sure we have the GI so we can isolate this. This I'll have to take a look. There's other areas that I want to take a look at. Obviously, this is not up to standard, so we're gonna have to figure out maybe the camera. I'm gonna have to re-render that. But otherwise, I think just for a quick run, just kind of figuring stuff out without having any reference to how this image was made, I think we're not too far off. We're in the ballpark. We're definitely got to adjust a few areas, but I'm not 100% mad. But yeah, see if you guys can rebuild it. Oh, and we can kind of make a shadow here in Nuke as well. Sort of get this guy kind of floating somewhere. Actually, we can set up another render element with a plane with some ambient occlusion, so we have some sort of slight contact here. Yeah, okay, cool.